The night before our wedding, I couldn't sleep. I stepped outside and saw her in the back seat of someone's car, laughing, then leaning in. I didn't interrupt, just made one phone call. Then another. By sunrise, 3 guests had canceled. By noon, she opened her dress bag and found something she wasn't supposed to see. The night before our wedding stretched endlessly before me as sleep refused to come. My mind raced through tomorrow's arrangements while my body remained restless against the hotel sheets. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon, followed by a reception for 200 guests. Every detail had been planned meticulously over the past 18 months, from the imported flowers to the hand-selected wine pairings. Yet something felt fundamentally wrong, though I could not identify the source of my unease. At 3 in the morning, I gave up trying to sleep and decided fresh air might calm my nerves. The hotel where our wedding party was staying sat on the outskirts of town, surrounded by manicured gardens and a large parking area. I threw on jeans and a t-shirt, grabbed my room key, and stepped into the cool night air. The hotel parking lot was dimly lit by scattered streetlights casting long shadows between the parked cars. I walked slowly along the rows of vehicles, breathing in the cool night air and trying to organize my thoughts about tomorrow. The magnitude of the commitment I was about to make felt overwhelming in the darkness, and I wondered if all grooms experienced this last-minute anxiety. Movement in a dark sedan 3 rows away caught my attention. The car sat isolated from the other vehicles, engine off, but clearly occupied. 2 figures were visible in the back seat, and something about their positioning made me step closer for a better look. What I witnessed made my blood run cold and changed the course of my life forever. Nicole sat in the back seat with someone I recognized immediately as Vincent, my best man and longtime friend. They were not simply talking or sharing innocent conversation. She threw her head back laughing at something he said, her hands running through his hair with obvious intimacy. Then she leaned forward and pressed her lips against his in a passionate kiss that lasted far too long to be anything other than romantic. I stood frozen behind a minivan, watching the woman I was supposed to marry in 12 hours betray everything we had built together. The kiss deepened, and Vincent's hands moved down her back with familiar ease that suggested this was not their first encounter. Their body language spoke of comfort and experience, of a relationship that had been developing over time rather than a spontaneous moment of weakness. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I looked down to see Nicole's name on the screen. "Can't wait to marry you tomorrow, my love. Sweet dreams. You mean everything to me." The hypocrisy of her message while she sat tangled with another man filled me with a rage so pure it felt almost cleansing. The contrast between her loving words and her current actions revealed a level of deception that took my breath away. I could have confronted them immediately, could have banged on the car window and demanded explanations, could have created a scene that would have ended everything in that parking lot. Instead, I turned around and walked back to my room with steady, deliberate steps. My mind was already shifting into analytical mode, considering options and consequences. Confrontation would provide immediate satisfaction, but would also give them the opportunity to create explanations, minimize their actions, or manipulate the situation. I wanted the complete truth before I acted. The rest of the night passed in calculated planning rather than emotional reaction. I sat at the small desk in my hotel room and began making phone calls, starting with my cousin Robert, who worked as a private investigator in the city. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep, but alert enough to recognize the urgency in my tone. "I need you to dig up everything you can on Vincent Morrison and Nicole Chun," I told him without preamble. "Financial records, travel history, phone records if you can manage it legally, credit card statements, hotel registrations, restaurant charges. I need this information by 10 in the morning, and I need it to be thorough." Robert had worked fraud cases for 15 years and asked no questions about my motivations. He understood from my tone and the timing of my call that this was not a request born from idle curiosity. He promised to have preliminary findings within hours and comprehensive results by my deadline. My second call went to Jake, Nicole's brother and our wedding photographer. Jake had always been straight with me, even when it meant going against his sister's wishes or family loyalty. He possessed an inherent honesty that I had always respected, and he had access to information that might prove valuable. I explained what I had witnessed in clinical terms, keeping my emotions controlled while describing the scene in the parking lot. "There might be more guests who need to cancel tomorrow," I told him cryptically after asking him to check Nicole's recent communications and financial activity. Jake's shocked silence told me he had suspected nothing about his sister's relationship with Vincent. His immediate agreement to help investigate suggested that he valued truth over family protection, which gave me hope that at least one person in this situation possessed genuine integrity. By sunrise, Robert had sent me a preliminary report that made my stomach churn with its implications. Hotel receipts showed Vincent and Nicole had been meeting regularly for the past 4 months, always at the same boutique hotel across town. The frequency of their meetings increased significantly during the weeks leading up to our wedding, sometimes occurring on the same days when Nicole claimed to be visiting her mother or working late at the office. Credit card statements revealed expensive dinners at romantic restaurants during times when Vincent claimed to be out of town on business trips. Jewelry purchases appeared on his credit history that corresponded with occasions when Nicole had mysteriously acquired new earrings or necklaces that she claimed were gifts from her female friends. The third guest cancellation came from Vincent's wife Rebecca after I forwarded her copies of the hotel receipts and restaurant charges. Her furious phone call to Vincent at 7 in the morning woke half the wedding party and created the first crack in the facade that would soon crumble completely. By 10 in the morning, wedding preparations continued around me while I sat in possession of information that would destroy everything everyone believed about this day. Nicole moved through the bridal suite like nothing had changed, directing her bridesmaids with cheerful efficiency and fielding calls from vendors with the enthusiasm of a woman genuinely excited about her impending marriage. The contrast between her public performance and her private actions fascinated me from a psychological perspective. She displayed no signs of guilt or internal conflict, no hints that she was living a double life that would soon be exposed. Her ability to compartmentalize was either masterful acting or genuine sociopathic behavior. Robert's complete report arrived as promised, and the contents exceeded even my worst suspicions about the scope of their betrayal. The financial investigation revealed that Vincent had been systematically embezzling money from our shared business account for the past 6 months. Small amounts at first, barely noticeable among our regular business expenses, then increasingly larger sums that he used to fund his affair with Nicole. The embezzlement showed sophisticated planning rather than impulsive theft. Vincent had created false invoices for non-existent business expenses, diverted client payments to personal accounts, and manipulated our bookkeeping software to hide the missing funds. The total amount stolen approached $50,000, representing nearly 2 years of profits from our consulting business. More disturbing was Robert's discovery that Nicole had been aware of the embezzlement and had actively helped Vincent cover his tracks by altering our financial records. She had been signing documents and authorizing transfers while pretending to be the loving, supportive partner who was simply helping with business administration. Her access to our files and her background in accounting had made her the perfect accomplice. The phone records Robert obtained through his law enforcement contacts showed hundreds of calls and text messages between Nicole and Vincent over the past 4 months. The communication patterns revealed that they often spoke while Nicole was sitting next to me during dinner or while we were supposedly planning our wedding together. They had been coordinating their affair and their theft while maintaining perfect facades of normalcy. Jake arrived at my room with additional evidence he had uncovered through his own investigation. Nicole's laptop, which he had borrowed under the pretense of transferring wedding photos, contained email drafts she had never sent but had been composing over several weeks. The emails detailed her plans to leave me immediately after our honeymoon, taking half of our joint assets and starting a new life with Vincent in another state. She was going to clean you out completely, Jake said, his voice heavy with disgust for his own sister's actions. The wedding was just a cover to make the asset division look legitimate during divorce proceedings. She wanted the legal protection of marriage before she disappeared with everything. The emails revealed a level of calculation that shocked even me. Nicole had researched divorce laws in our state, consulted with attorneys about asset protection strategies, and even scouted potential homes in Vincent's target relocation area. The wedding we had planned together was merely the final step in her elaborate scheme to rob me blind. At 11:30, I received an unexpected call from Detective Martinez of the Financial Crimes Division. Vincent's wife Rebecca had filed a formal complaint about the embezzlement after reviewing the evidence I had provided, and the detective wanted to interview me immediately about our business finances. The situation was escalating beyond personal betrayal into criminal investigation territory. I spent the next hour at the police station providing Detective Martinez with detailed information about our business operations and the financial irregularities I had recently discovered. The detective informed me that Vincent could face serious felony charges if the embezzlement amounts exceeded the threshold for grand theft, which they clearly did based on my preliminary calculations. "We'll need to freeze your business accounts pending investigation," Detective Martinez explained while taking my statement. "This might complicate your immediate financial situation and definitely your honeymoon plans." The irony of her comment about honeymoon complications would have been funny under different circumstances. By noon, when Nicole finally opened her wedding dress bag in the bridal suite, surrounded by her bridesmaids and mother, the honeymoon had become the least of our concerns. Inside the garment bag, instead of her carefully preserved silk gown that had cost $3,000, she found printed copies of every piece of evidence I had gathered over the past 9 hours. Hotel receipts showing her affair, bank statements documenting the embezzlement, email drafts revealing her exit strategy, phone records proving the scope of her deception, and a formal letter from Detective Martinez requesting her immediate presence for questioning regarding financial fraud. The screaming that erupted from the bridal suite could be heard throughout the entire hotel floor. Nicole's initial shock quickly transformed into rage rather than shame or remorse. Her mother fainted upon reading the evidence, and 2 bridesmaids ran from the room in tears after understanding what the documents revealed. Within minutes, Nicole was pounding on my door, still wearing her silk robe, demanding explanations and making threats about ruining my life. The confrontation that followed revealed depths of deception and manipulation I had never imagined possible from someone I had planned to spend my life with. Nicole stood in my doorway, clutching the evidence papers and shaking with rage rather than shame or remorse. Her reaction told me everything I needed to know about her true character and her feelings about being caught. "You had no right to investigate me like some kind of criminal," she screamed, as if her systematic betrayal and theft were somehow secondary to my discovery of her crimes. "This is a violation of my privacy and my trust. How could you spy on me before our wedding?" Her ability to position herself as the victim in this situation demonstrated either remarkable self-deception or calculated manipulation. She showed no acknowledgement of her affair, no recognition of the embezzlement, no awareness that her actions had destroyed our relationship and our business. Only anger at being caught and exposed. Vincent appeared 20 minutes later, having been summoned by Nicole's panicked phone call. His wife Rebecca had apparently confronted him with the hotel receipts and credit card evidence, leading to his own explosive domestic situation. He looked haggard and desperate, his usual confident demeanor replaced by the appearance of a man facing serious consequences for the first time in his life. The 3 of us stood in my hotel room, while wedding preparations continued in chaos around us. Guests were arriving for the ceremony, vendors were setting up equipment, and the hotel staff was preparing the reception hall, all unaware that the entire event was collapsing into criminal investigation and personal destruction. "We can work this out," Vincent said, his voice pleading and desperate. "The money thing is just a temporary misunderstanding. I was going to pay it all back after the wedding with interest. The business is doing well enough to cover everything." The absurdity of his statement almost made me laugh despite the gravity of the situation. He had stolen nearly $50,000 from our business account over 6 months and used it to fund an affair with my fiancée. Yet he spoke as if this was a minor accounting error that could be resolved with a simple payment plan. Nicole's strategy was different, but equally revealing of her character. She claimed that Vincent had manipulated and coerced her, that she was actually a victim of his schemes, and had been planning to confess everything to me after our honeymoon. The emails Jake had found on her laptop, detailing her plans to leave me and take half our assets, apparently meant nothing according to her revised narrative. Those were just fantasy scenarios, she insisted with convincing sincerity. I wrote them when I was confused and emotionally manipulated by Vincent. They weren't real plans. I would never actually follow through with something like that. Her ability to lie smoothly and convincingly, even when confronted with documentary evidence, was both impressive and terrifying. I realized that I had never truly known this woman despite living with her for 3 years and planning to marry her. Detective Martinez arrived at 2 in the afternoon with a warrant to search Vincent's hotel room and personal belongings. The fraud investigation had expanded rapidly after Rebecca provided additional evidence of Vincent's financial irregularities, including forged business documents and falsified tax returns. Nicole watched in horror as her affair partner was led away in handcuffs for formal questioning. The detective informed me that Nicole was also wanted for questioning as a person of interest in the financial crimes, since her signatures appeared on several suspicious documents and her accounting background had facilitated some of the more sophisticated theft methods. The romantic betrayal had evolved into a criminal investigation with serious legal consequences for both perpetrators. By 3 in the afternoon, the time when our wedding ceremony should have begun, news of the scandal had spread throughout the wedding party and guest list. People were canceling their attendance, vendors were demanding immediate payment for services already rendered, and the hotel management was threatening to charge us for the full wedding package regardless of whether the ceremony proceeded. Nicole's extended family arrived to collect her belongings and escort her to the police station for questioning. Her mother, who had recovered from her earlier fainting spell, spent 20 minutes screaming at me about ruining her daughter's life and destroying the family's reputation, as if I had somehow forced Nicole to embezzle money and conduct an affair with my best man. The wedding venue coordinator called to inform me that they would be keeping our $15,000 deposit regardless of our decision to cancel, citing contract terms about cancellations with less than 24 hours notice. The financial losses were mounting rapidly, and I realized that Nicole and Vincent's crimes would cost me far more than just the stolen money. Local news crews arrived at the hotel after someone tipped them off about the dramatic cancellation and police investigation. The spectacle of a wedding destroyed by embezzlement and adultery provided exactly the kind of sensational story that filled evening news broadcasts and social media feeds. The aftermath of that canceled wedding created ripple effects that continued destroying lives for years. Vincent was formally charged with embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft after investigators discovered he had also been using false identities to open credit accounts. He faced up to 7 years in prison if convicted on all counts, and his bail was set at $100,000 due to flight risk concerns. His wife Rebecca filed for divorce within a week and sued him for damages, seeking to recover not only the money he had spent on his affair with Nicole, but also compensation for emotional distress and the destruction of their 10-year marriage. She also filed restraining orders preventing him from accessing their joint assets or contacting their 2 young children. Nicole herself faced criminal charges as an accessory to fraud and embezzlement. The emails Jake had discovered, combined with her signatures on fraudulent financial documents and her accounting expertise, provided prosecutors with clear evidence of her knowing participation in Vincent's schemes. Her claims of manipulation and victimization crumbled when investigators uncovered evidence that she had been the one to suggest several of the more sophisticated embezzlement methods. The district attorney's office treated the case seriously due to the premeditated nature of the crimes and the substantial amounts involved. Nicole was offered a plea bargain that would have given her 18 months in prison, but she rejected it and insisted on going to trial, believing she could convince a jury of her innocence despite the overwhelming evidence. The business Vincent and I had built together over 5 years collapsed within weeks of the scandal breaking. The frozen accounts and ongoing criminal investigation made it impossible to maintain operations or pay our employees. Our clients rapidly lost confidence in our reliability and began terminating contracts, concerned about their own liability for working with a company under criminal investigation. Years of hard work building our reputation and client base disappeared overnight because of their greed and betrayal. The company we had started in my garage and grown into a successful consulting firm with 12 employees was forced into bankruptcy, leaving everyone unemployed and destroying relationships I had spent years developing. My personal financial losses extended far beyond the stolen money, devastating as that was. The canceled wedding cost me nearly $20,000 in non-refundable deposits and fees to vendors who had already provided services or reserved their time. The business collapse meant losing my primary source of income just as legal bills began mounting from both criminal proceedings and civil litigation. I had to sell my house to cover immediate expenses and hire the attorneys necessary to protect myself from further financial damage. The legal fees alone consumed another $30,000 over the course of the investigation and trials, money I borrowed against my retirement savings and personal credit. The emotional and psychological toll proved harder to quantify than the financial losses, but was equally destructive. The discovery that 2 people I trusted completely had been systematically deceiving and robbing me for months created lasting trust issues that affected every subsequent relationship I attempted to build. The realization that Nicole had been planning to leave me while pretending to plan our future together fundamentally changed my understanding of human nature and romantic relationships. Every interaction we had shared during those final months took on a different meaning when viewed through the lens of her true intentions. The legal proceedings stretched on for 14 months, consuming enormous amounts of time and emotional energy. Vincent eventually pleaded guilty to embezzlement charges in exchange for a reduced sentence and received 2 years in prison plus 5 years probation. He was ordered to pay full restitution to both the business and his wife, though his bankruptcy filing made actual recovery extremely unlikely. Nicole's trial lasted 3 weeks and attracted significant media attention due to the sensational nature of the case. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of her participation in the financial crimes, including the emails detailing her exit strategy and expert testimony about her role in concealing the embezzlement through sophisticated accounting manipulation. Her defense team attempted to portray her as a victim of Vincent's manipulation, arguing that she had been emotionally coerced into participating in crimes she didn't fully understand. However, the jury was not convinced by her testimony, particularly when confronted with her own written words describing her plans to take everything and disappear. Nicole was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and sentenced to 18 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. She was also ordered to pay restitution, though like Vincent, her financial situation made recovery unlikely. During the investigation, additional evidence emerged that painted an even darker picture of their relationship and criminal conspiracy. Phone records revealed that Nicole and Vincent had been planning their scheme since before Vincent agreed to be my best man. The entire wedding preparation period had been an elaborate cover for their intention to steal as much money as possible before disappearing together. Detective Martinez later told me that their case was one of the most calculated betrayals she had encountered in 15 years of financial crimes investigation. The combination of emotional manipulation and systematic theft, carried out over months while maintaining perfect facades of normalcy, showed a level of premeditation that shocked even experienced investigators. The personal toll of the betrayal extended beyond financial and legal consequences into every aspect of my daily life. Friends and family members didn't know how to respond to the situation, and many relationships became strained under the weight of constant legal proceedings and media attention. Dating became nearly impossible as potential partners were either attracted to the drama or frightened away by its implications. 2 years after that canceled wedding, I had begun rebuilding my career as an independent consultant, though with much greater caution about business partnerships and financial controls. The experience had taught me valuable lessons about human nature and the importance of verification over trust, but the cost of that education was extremely high. I eventually received a letter from Nicole while she was serving her prison sentence, in which she attempted to apologize and explain her actions. The letter revealed that she and Vincent had resumed their relationship through prison correspondence and were planning to move to another state together after completing their sentences. Her apology felt hollow and self-serving, focused more on her own guilt and desire for forgiveness than on genuine recognition of the damage she had caused. Vincent's wife Rebecca and I became friends through our shared experience of betrayal and financial devastation. She helped me understand that warning signs of deception had been present for months, but we had both chosen to trust rather than investigate. Our friendship provided some comfort during the difficult recovery period and reminded me that not everyone was capable of such elaborate deception. 3 years after that night in the hotel parking lot, I had rebuilt my financial situation and begun dating again, though with much greater awareness and caution. The experience had fundamentally changed my approach to relationships and business partnerships, making me more vigilant about red flags and more protective of my assets and emotional well-being. The final consequence came 4 years later when Vincent violated his parole by failing to make required restitution payments and attempting to hide assets from his creditors. He was sent back to prison to serve the remainder of his original sentence, while Nicole faced additional penalties for helping him conceal money and property from the courts. Their grand romance, built on lies and theft and betrayal, ultimately destroyed both of their lives more thoroughly than it had damaged mine. The night before what should have been my wedding became the night that saved me from years of additional deception, theft, and emotional manipulation. Sometimes the worst betrayals become unexpected gifts, revealing truths that protect us from even greater future harm. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.